Hi, so this is the second video for week 10. And this is my second try at the second video for week 10. Sorry if you saw my original post that the video was ready. I was really hoping it was done, but I will hopefully get this right this time. Today, we are going to go over all of the information you need to complete the homework for Friday and the homework for Sunday. Basically, those are just two different steps to get you to Sunday. Tonight, so Wednesday, is the COVID-19 bubble chart due date, and then I had asked you to finish getting some more survey responses. Overall, it looks like so far we've gotten a lot of good survey responses. Most of them are around 70-ish. I think there's one that's higher than that. It's not where I wanted, but I think it's enough for us to be able to do some good data analysis. So what we're going to talk about today, again, is taking that information, cleaning it, how to create the data tables for that, and then how to create the draft charts that are going to be due Sunday. So the first thing that I want to show you how to do is how to clean the data, because as we've seen before, when you got your surveys back a few weeks ago, sometimes you get responses that aren't complete, or can't be used by Excel to create calculations, might be joke responses, whatever. We want to clean up your data so it's really usable. So this is where I messed up the last time. Well, not quite yet, but I'm going to show you first where to get your data files. So my Tuesday, Thursday class, you have one project. There should be one data file on Canvas under modules. Sunday, Wednesday. Can't remember if I said Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Monday, Wednesday, you have one project. Tuesday, Thursday, there are 3 projects. And so I want to show you where to find that. And we are going to do the screen share. And we're going to share the sound at the same time. There we go. Okay, so this is where I messed up before. Screen sharing, where you find it. So on Canvas under modules, if you look at today at week 10, you'll see the AAC data tables assignment. What's the assignment for Friday? And then you'll see all of the different files. So for both classes, you have the survey responses, which will be in an Excel file. I also posted the questions. So if you don't remember what we asked, or if it's a Likert scale question and you want to know if a 1 is good or bad, or 5 is good or bad, you can look at the questions to see those different labels. So for your whichever group you're in, and again, whatever group you've been assigned for ASU 121, you want to be able to pick that survey. You're just going to click on that Excel file, and you're going to download, use this link at the top to download the file. Once you have the file, you can open it up. And this is where I think we had issues. I think I need to go new share, and now I have my screen, and we're going to share that. So you'll enable editing, and then you'll be able to make all of the changes that you're going to want to make. Now, I'm going to show you how to make some changes using a different data set, because I want you to figure out for your data what you want to change, how you want to clean it. I want you to apply the things I'm going to teach you to your own data, but I'm not going to clean up your data in this video. Although while we're looking at it, I didn't mention this last time, so I'll mention it now. Clearly on this one, how much would you be willing to spend? You're going to have to take out or edit like $40 a semester. You're going to turn that into whichever, how much would per ride. So $40 a semester, you're probably going to have to take that out. So some of these you're going to have to make some decisions on as you're doing them. But I'm going to give you some general things to look for and show you how to do the data cleaning with an example file. So that's the first thing we're going to go over, is how to clean your data. So once you've downloaded it, you're going to apply these things to this file. But I am going to use an example from last year, a survey that was done from the V group last year. I'm going to use their survey data to show you a few things on how to clean them. And again, let's make sure I'm doing this right. Let's share the screen, make sure that I am sharing the right thing. This is where I think I messed up. Okay. Hopefully we've got the right thing up. Fingers crossed. So, just gonna double check it. Now I'm paranoid. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when we're cleaning the data is you want to look through it holistically and see where you can just automatically see issues. That's the very first thing to do. Actually, the very first thing to do is you need to save this file as your raw data file. So file, save as. Please put this in a folder. Please put all of the work together in a folder, if not in a TWC folder or something else. It helps you to find it. Keeping organized with your data, especially when you're going to do multiple steps, is going to be very helpful. So for this one, you want to cleaning data example, whatever. Name it your survey and then name it raw data. So I might name this survey these raw data. That's pretty simple, but I'll save that as my raw data file. Once you have a raw data file saved, then you're going to want to do another save as and save your working version. The reason why you want to do this is because you want to make sure that you have that raw data set aside, that if anybody ever comes along and asks you a question about why did you do this or what did you do, you have the original data saved in a raw data file. Save a second version. I would save it same folder, but I would save it, and you can save it the same name, survey bees. And then I would do clean data version 1. So this way you know what version you're working on, you know if you can make subsequent versions, where you're at. So you'll save that, and that's the file you're going to work with. So then what you want to do is look for anything that's really obviously a problem. So look for a question that may be like, oh, wow, we didn't maybe ask the right way, and so the responses are going to be kind of messy. And decide how you want to handle those. In general, there are some problems that you'll see that I'm going to show you how to fix. The first one is most of you have a survey where you asked how much you'd be willing to spend for something. Not all of them have this question, but many of them do. So the first thing I would want to do with that one, this one is how much should you be willing to spend? And actually I'm going to make this bigger, so remember you can double click, make that the right size. How much would you be willing to spend per year to support a bee-friendly campus? So right now, these are number format. They're just a general format. Actually, they're not even number format, they're just general. I want this to be in dollars because this is dollars. So I want to set that as dollars, and that way I can calculate it. And you can see the ones that are 0 have a little dash. The other thing I want to do is make sure that there aren't any blank ones in here. So I'm going to scroll through and look. Look, there's a blank one. In this case, how much you'd be willing to spend, if it's blank, I'm gonna guess, not just guess, I feel like that the reasonable answer is if it was blank, they would say 0. So I'm gonna put a 0 in any of the blank ones. One of the things you can do is, again, remember, if you turn on the filters, and that's just selecting this filter button and selecting filter. I'm gonna turn it back on, filters. If I have the filter on, I can actually filter for blank lines. So I'll look through here and I will see, oh, there is a blank. I'm gonna unselect everything. So I'm gonna choose all the blanks. And again, for this, I feel like there's only one blank one left. Really, I feel like 0 for that question would have been what they were probably intending. So I'm gonna change that to 0. Now, we can do that type of formatting for any of the number columns. So for example, we have this here. It's also set as general up here in the bar. We can select that column and change that to a number, because that way Excel will know how to calculate it. But I don't want those decimals, so I'm going to press that button and get rid of those decimals. By setting the type of response in the column, by formatting the number or the text or whatever, it will help Excel do calculations when you actually want to go calculate things. So formatting the dollars, formatting any of the numbers as numbers are the kind of first things to do. Second thing I'm going to look through and find out is whether or not there are any joke answers in there. In this one, I know for certain there is one. If I scroll down, somebody answered $1 million and how much they'd be willing to spend. Now, I know that that's not going to be a right answer. They didn't also answer 0, so I can't assume they would have said 0. So I'm going to actually leave that one intentionally blank. When I'm doing my calculations, I may just leave it out as an answer at all. So if I was going to calculate an average, I might actually just leave it out as data. But they answered all the other questions, so I'm going to still leave their responses in. But the $1 million I'm going to change. I'm just going to delete that response. Any of the joke answers, you can feel free to either delete the answer or the whole entry. I know in one of the surveys in the Tuesday, Thursday class, somebody in every cell filled in a joke answer. Please delete that whole answer. You can also delete blanks. So maybe they answered just 1 or 2 questions, but none of the rest. Those are the ones where I would probably just delete their whole response. If they only answered 1 or 2 things, it's probably not a valid response. So it's best just to just delete the whole thing. So I'm going to scroll through this spreadsheet and see if anybody did that. Pretty much just didn't answer all of the questions. Looks like there's one. This one right here, they answered just a couple of questions and nothing else. So I'm just going to select that and I'm going to delete it. You don't want to delete too many that have no answers, but if they don't have any answers, this one also looks like one I should delete. So go through and delete any that are completely blank or have a lot of blank answers. Again, one of the surveys, I believe the cleaning survey, you're going to have a lot of blanks and you need to delete those because you asked first whether or not they were a student. And if they were not a student, you're going to get a whole row of blanks. You can delete those. Again, you asked them if they lived on campus or not. If they did not live on campus, all the rest of the answers are going to be blank. You can delete those. So you're only left with students that live on campus because that's what you cared about. So you're going to go through and delete any joke answers and then any blank responses. That's the next thing that those are the next steps that you'll do. Now, the next step is a little more complicated. Many of you have Likert scale questions. So Likert scale questions, depending on how we wrote the question, sometimes the responses will be in the column in a way that is in numbers, and that's great. You'll look at the question, you'll know 1 means very much, or 5 means not at all. You can do calculations with that. But if we wrote the questions differently, and instead we have more word-based responses, but they're still on a Likert scale, we can convert those into numbers so that we can use them. So this question right here, how afraid are you of bees? That was on a Likert scale. So it was extremely afraid, very afraid, neutral, somewhat afraid, or not at all afraid. So we can turn those into numbers. So I'm going to insert a column. And I'm going to call it the same thing because it's still the same question. But what I'm going to do is I am going to convert these to numbers. So we'll do a 1 to 5 scale. And it's really helpful because you want to know what a 1 means to, on this cell, insert a comment and say 1 equals, let's do not at all afraid. 2 equals somewhat afraid. 3 equals neutral. 4 equals very afraid. And 5 equals extremely afraid. Okay, so I've got my note on there so I know what these mean, but now I gotta actually do it. So the easiest way to do this is, again, to use your filters. Let's first select very afraid, or select, let's select not at all afraid first. We said not at all afraid. We said that was a 1. So now I want to put a 1 in this column for all of these. So I'm just going to put 1 in, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it down. So then I need to do that for all of them. So not at all afraid, somewhat afraid was 2. Copy it, Control Shift down. Oops, that won't work when it's not selected. And now I'm at the bottom, Control Shift up. No, won't do it. Control Shift up. There we go. Okay, copy that. Paste that in there. Neutral. You can also just type them in if you want. Depends on how fast it is for you. Either way is fine, although you don't want to get a 33 in there. So this slide copying and pasting is actually a little bit better sometimes. And there's a lot of these, so. I don't know why Control Shift down isn't working. Should be. Okay, we've got neutral. And we've got very afraid, which is 4. That one I'm just going to type in. And then we've got extremely afraid. And again, I'm just going to type those in because easy. Okay. So now if I unfilter those, we can see that everyone now has a numerical value. So since it has a numerical value, now I can create an average. I can see on that scale where the average falls, or I can see how many people in each category. I can do a count a little bit better, but the real value of this is to do the average of that, to be able to use that for an average. So I've converted my Likert scales into numbers and added that column. Then the next thing we need to do is convert any long responses into simple ones. So again, depending on how we wrote your questions, for some questions, the responses were like, yes, bees are important. Maybe, it's possible bees are important. We don't really need all of those words to be able to do things, and actually those words will get in the way. So I can convert these to just more simple responses. So again, I want to check for blanks on this one. There's only one blank, and that one blank is all blank. So let's delete that entry. Okay. And so then now we're going to go back and we can do, let's do yes. These are important. And all I'm going to do is convert that to just a simple yes. You could actually convert that to a 1 or 2 or 3. It's really not an average you can take of yes or no, so I don't feel like that's necessary. But again, just copy and paste it. Copy and paste. Okay, sorry. So we'll Control V. We'll replace all of the yeses. So we just want to make these simple. Yes. We'll select no. And oops, put no in there. And then we'll do maybe. So again, just simplifies everything for when we do, if there are other search functions we need to do, other counting functions, having them simplified will be more workable, basically. So we've changed any of the more complicated responses to something simpler. We've converted our long responses. That's what we're doing. I want to change the free responses to something that's categorized at all possible. So if you had free response questions, many times they can be put into categories or simplified. For example, the free response questions that were what dorm people lived in. So somebody might have written Tooker, somebody could write Tooker House, somebody could capitalize it, not capitalize it. You want to make those all consistent with one term because you can reasonably assume they were all meaning the same thing. So let me clear this out. Okay. So in this example, I did something very basic, but same concept. Any free response, you want to categorize it as much as you can. So the first two responses here, color, black and yellow, they're talking about the same thing. They're talking about color. So I like bees because of their color. So I'm going to change black and yellow to color. The next two, what you might most about bees? Bees suck. I hate bees. Those are the same thing. You could just say don't like bees, and then any response that's indicating that you can change to I don't like bees. A goal is if you can make them the same because they reasonably make sense that they're saying the same thing, you want to make them the same because then you can count them, you can put them together in some way. Obviously, if they have very varied responses, leave the variation there. But like the last two, they're both talking about bees, bees and pollination. So I'm going to say pollination or food. So again, free response, particularly again with the questions where they talked about the dorms, make them consistent. So Hacienda isn't Hasi A, it's all one thing that you can categorize and then you can count them. Okay, then the last thing you need to do, multiple response questions. So if you have multiple response questions, and most of you did, you need Google, the way that it puts it together is a little more, not complicated, but it's not as good. So basically, if you have multiple responses, it's going to put them all in one cell. So stay indoors and hydrate. They chose stay indoors, hydrate, sit under shade. We can't do anything with that because it's all together in one cell. So we need to break that out. And I've already created some cells, which I'll just insert columns for as many of the responses as you had. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 responses you could choose from. So I'm going to add a column for each one. I've already done that though, and I've already done it, and I want to unhide these. This is the problem with doing this video again. The first time it went much more smoothly, but you couldn't see it. There we go. Unhide those ones that I created. Nope, I'm not gonna want to do it. Okay, so I've created columns for each one of the responses. Stay indoors, hydrate, swim, sit in the shade, do nothing different, drink water. I've added those. And then all you want to do, and I started to do it here, is if they answered stay indoors, you're going to put a 1 in there. If they didn't answer stay indoors, you'll put a 0. So stay indoors, 1. So you can see I did that for quite a ways. I'm not going to do them all, but here they didn't say stay indoors. They did. So I'm just going to enter for stay indoors if they answered it. Same thing for hydrate. So you're going to go through, and if they did answer it, you'll put a 1, 0 if they didn't. The reason why we can do this is now I have it so that I can count. I can go through and I can highlight the whole column, and I can see how many people, how many total there were, and then I can take just the ones And now I can tell you, and I can count how many there were of those. And I can tell you, oh yeah, okay, 38 people said stay indoors. So now I can count them a lot easier than like just sitting there and manually counting them. I can sort, filter. I can see how many people said stay indoors and drink water. So I can actually compare different, or look at interactions between different things. Now that I've got it broken out. So if you have a multiple response question, you're gonna wanna add a column for each response and put a 1 in there if they did respond that way, or 0 if they didn't, for each one of your responses. Okay, so that's cleaning your data. When you're done, you're gonna save that file, and that's the file you're gonna work from. You wanna make sure you have it as its own file and saved in a folder. So I'm gonna review what you're gonna do to clean your data. You're gonna save it as a raw data file. And you're going to save it as a cleaned data file with the title cleaned version 1. That's the version you're going to clean. You're going to first format the cells. So dollars, make them dollars, numbers, make them numbers, format all of the cells. Then you're going to look for any joke answers, get rid of those joke answers. You're going to look at all the blanks where there's a lot of blanks in the responses. Maybe they only answered 1 question. You can delete those. You're going to add a column next to any Likert scale questions that are not in numbers, give them numbers. You are going to then take any of the long responses. Yes, I like that a lot. No, I don't like that. Just change them to yes, no, maybe. You are going to convert your free responses and categorize them in any way you can. And then you are going to take your multiple response questions and break those out into columns so I know which of the multiple responses they actually answered. So that's how you clean the data. That is the first step for this assignment coming up. So you're going to clean your data, save it, and then you're going to move on to the next step. And the next step is exploring your data to figure out what story do you want to tell. This is going to take a while. This is your AAC data. This is the data you're using to prove that your project is worth doing. People want the project to kind of explain the problem in some cases. I know some of the questions had to do with proving that it is actually a problem. So just taking the first thing you see and saying, yeah, I'm gonna make a chart out of that, and I'm gonna get my grade. Sure, you might get a grade. That's cool. But for your project, it's not gonna be helpful. Long-term, we need really to take the survey data and actually find really interesting correlations, interactions, all of the story types we've talked about. We want to find those so that we can really prove that your project is valuable. So again, to review, you're going to look through your data. You may need to do averages. You may need to filter. You're going to have to filter. Because maybe you want to see if people who think the bee population is decrease or increasing. I need to undo the stay indoors filter, which by the way was from a different survey. I just had to add it for illustration purposes. So if I believe that the bee population is increasing, I'm going to filter that. I'm going to see, okay, do they believe something else? Do they maybe think that it's not, that bees aren't important to food production? And so then I'd have to say, okay, what was their average on bees are not being important to food production? Their average was a 2, which is not very important. So people who have bad information about bees, because bee population is not increasing, it's decreasing. People who have bad information about bees also don't think they're very important. So that could lead me to believe maybe they just don't know enough about it. I might want to see, let's undo this filter. I might want to look at the Likert scale question and see, on average, are males more afraid of bees? Are females more afraid of bees? Remember, that's called segmenting our data. We're going to segment our data. I want you to compare data. And I want you to find the story. And you're actually going to find 3 stories for this week. So again, the story types, you can find a factoid. So 76% of people are willing to pay for increasing bee hotels on campus. It could be a comparison. So I could be comparing 2 different things people who, males and females, people who are afraid and not afraid. So I can compare people. I can look at an interaction. Again, we're going to show this later. There's an interaction between, in this survey data, people who don't know as much about bees and their fear level. People who don't know as much are more afraid. So there's an interesting interaction there. We could actually use that and say, oh, they don't know much, but they're more afraid. If our biggest barrier is people being afraid, then we maybe just need to educate them. So that data and that interaction can actually help us justify our solution. So interaction and then change over time. I don't know if anybody has change data. The cleaning group might have some change data because you did talk about like whether or not people got sick before they came to college more than they, or less than when they came to college. So that would be change over time. So you could look at that. And then the personal data. Looking through this and looking at your audience, and your audience are going to be people who are trying to make decisions on campus for the most part. What are they going to be most interested in? Is that dollars? Is it whether or not people support it? You need to look through the data and kind of think about what would they be most interested in, and then pull that out of your data. So the next step, after you've cleaned it, you're going to explore your data and you're going to find those stories, those connections. What do you want to say with the data that we've collected? You asked a lot of questions for a reason. So what is it telling you? What do you want to say? So then once you have that, now we need to make data tables, because if you just highlight that column and try to make a chart out of it, many of you have tried that before and it creates pivot tables. And if you're not using it correctly, that's not going to give you an answer that's actually workable. We need to create our own data tables. You need to actually do the counting and the averaging and everything and put it in a table so that you can make a chart out of it. So I'm going to show you some examples. And okay, let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen again. Okay, so what I've done, I've got the same data on this tab. What you're going to do, and what I've done, is you'll want to make a new tab. So down here at the bottom, just click New Sheet. And then we want to pull out the data that's going to help us tell our story. So the first data, or the first story that I wanted to tell was a comparison story. I wanted to compare the different genders and how much they were willing to spend. And I actually thought I could make a really good bubble chart out of that. So I'm going to create that new tab and I'm going to rename it. So you just right click and you can click rename. I'm going to rename it comparison. So I'm going to name it the story type and then what chart type I'm going to make. So comparison bubble chart. And then I'm going to go to my sheet and say, okay, if I want to compare those things, well, I need the gender column and I need how much they'd be willing to pay. And this is not the clean data. So I would copy that and I would take it over to my new sheet and I would paste it in and then I would be able to use it. Now I've got that already done here, so I've copied it and pasted it. So if I want to see what the actual comparison is, I'm going to need to make a table. So I'll do that off to the side and I've already done that, so I'm going to uncover it for you. So I have all of the gender information here because I wanted to see gender and how much they were willing to spend by gender. So genders listed in each of the rows, and then how much they're willing to spend, but I needed to calculate that. So again, I'm gonna use my filters. I wanna see just the females, and we have how much they're willing to spend, and then I can highlight that, or Control Shift down should highlight all of the lines. And remember, it tells you the average down here in the corner, so $3.24. So I'm gonna clear that out. And female, I'm gonna type 324. Do the same thing for male, filter it, highlight it, see what the average is, type it into the square. And I thought this would make a really interesting bubble chart because I can not only see, okay, males and how much, females and how much they want to spend, I can look at all the genders. I can actually use how many males and females we had to make the bubbles different sizes. So I'm also going to count and put a count in here of the number so I can make that bubble size. So again, I'm going to select just females. I'm going to Control Shift down, or Command Shift down if you're on the Mac, and it's going to tell me the count is 62. And so I can put that in the box. I'm also going to show you how to create an average line. So I wanted an average of the whole group, and that was $3.23. So you need to put that on every line, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit, but $3.23 there. So you're going to make data tables for each of your 3 different charts you're going to make. So I made a data table for the bubble chart. I wanted to see, I thought, oh, there's an interesting interaction between, again, how important people feel like bees are to food and production and how afraid they are. So I wanted to see that, and I'm going to uncover it. So I copied over those 2 pieces of data from my main tab and put them here so I could work with them. Unhide for you so you can see. So how important bees are to food production. That's not knowledgeable, but I can make a connection and say, if they don't know they're very important, they're not very knowledgeable about bees, because pretty much if you know bees are important, if you're knowledgeable, you know bees are important. So this was a question, a Likert scale question. So what I was able to do is say, okay, people who thought were more knowledgeable were a 1 or a 2 on the scale. People who were less knowledgeable were a 4 or a 5. So then I just filtered for the 1 and the 2. And now I can see, I'll shift down, what their average was. And their average was 2.96. So those are people who were more knowledgeable, 2.96. And their fear was a 2.96 on a 5-point scale. And then I can clear that, or I can use the other 2. I'm not going to take the neutral answer. I'm just going to take the higher level. So people who are less knowledgeable. And again, Control Shift down, and we can see their average was 3.72. So I made my data table. Average level of fear. People who are more knowledgeable are less fearful. So I have the data ready that I can make a chart, and I'm going to make a bar chart out of this. So again, I've named my tab as the type of story, so the story type and the type of chart I'm going to make. So now I have a third chart I have to make, and this one I wanted to see, just in general, how many what percent of people are willing to pay for having bees on campus. So I'm going to make that's a factoid story type, and I'm going to make an icon array of that because I'm going to look at the percentage of the whole. So let me uncover that for you. So I did the total count, again, Control Shift down, how many people, 62, and then how many were unwilling to spend and willing to spend, that was this category. So unwilling would be 0. So anybody that answered 0. And again, this was not cleaned data, so I'm gonna have to choose all the variations of 0. And then I can see, okay, how many people said 0, Control Shift down, that was 34. You'll do the same thing for people who were willing to spend anything. And you can put that in, and then you can calculate the percentage. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Well, obviously the first one is 55 out of 55, that's the total. Oops. And I want that as a percent, so that's 100%. You can calculate the percentage for those that are not taking CIS, equals, so you can do this, your portion amount divided by your total amount, 62%, or you can just type in the numbers, equals 34 divided by 55. Just have to put that equals in there, divided by 55. And then we get 62% equals 21 out of 55. So 38% of the people, respondents, said that they were willing to spend money to have a more bee-friendly campus. I have my data. I could create an icon array out of that. So I'm going to rename my tab. So now I'm going to save this file. That file is what you need to upload for your Friday homework. You're going to have a file with your original cleaned data. You're going to have 3 tabs. Each of the tabs is going to be named with the story type and the type of chart you're going to create. And then it's going to have the data table. So this is the thing you can use to make that chart. So that's the assignment for Friday by midnight. Cleaned data, explore your data, 3 different data tables. For Sunday, what I'm going to ask you to do is create just draft charts. You don't have to edit them. They just need to be good drafts, good enough that I can understand what you're trying to show me. So I'm going to show you the example on the bubble chart, how we can do that. With this bubble chart, I'm not going to highlight. Normally, last time we talked about bubble charts have 3 pieces of data. We are going to use 3 pieces of data for this, but because this is the label, I'm actually going to only highlight the middle 2. So I just want the dollars and the bubble size. And again, we do insert, we get our chart here. And now I have my bubble chart that I can work with. Again, for your final draft, you're going to want to move this to a new chart, move the chart to a new location. For this, I'm going to show you here because I want to show you all of the data. So I've got I have my bubbles on here. I'm going to do some basic editing. Again, you want to just make it so that I can understand what you're trying to do. And I really hate these lines, so you need to take those out for me. I'm going to give my chart a title in a minute. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect at this point, but I want you to at least explain to me what you're trying to show me. And so I have my bubbles. I don't really need this because that doesn't correspond to anything. I'll just directly label the female, the male, the non-binary, and the prefer not to say. I'll label those with some data labels that I know. And again, eventually you're going to edit these completely. But you can put the data labels on there for right now. The thing that I really want you to learn, or I want you to see, is, and let's not do the call outs. I'll take the call outs out. I do not want that leader line there. Don't like those. Okay, so you're going to edit this later, but what I want to show you is how to get an average line. And you can do this for any chart type. The average line is often really helpful because it gives us a frame of reference. What was the overall average? But it's a little tricky to do, particularly in bubble charts. There's a really fancy way to do it in a lot of the charts, but I'm going to show you the simple way that works for pretty much every chart. So for this chart right here, what we need to do, and I'm going to make sure I'm on this screen because this is important. So just make sure the share is on the correct screen. Yay, we're on the right one. Okay, here. So what we need to do is you want to do add, and again, if you don't have these buttons over here, up here at add a chart element, same thing. We are going, oh, sorry, not add a chart element. We want to do changing the data, so selecting the data, sorry, not add a chart, select data up here will work if you have a Mac. But you're going to add, that's why I wanted the green plus, you're going to add a series. So this series name we're going to call average. And the series X values, you're just going to highlight that column. And series Y values, you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to highlight that column. And the bubble size of 1 is fine. Just hit enter and then OK. And now, it's kind of light, I'm not sure why, you've got a dot on there that actually shows us where the average line will be. That's not a line. So I want to make it into something that looks like a line. And so what I can do is I can just click on it. I can do insert, and then we're going to do shapes, and we're going to create a line. So the easiest actually thing to do is to make your line elsewhere and move it. So I'm going to make a line. I'm going to line up those crosshairs there. I'm going to drag my, oops, sorry. Doorbell's ringing. We're going to drag the line. As a reminder, if you hold down your mouse and hit the shift button at the same time, I'm going to make the line off, and hit the shift button, it will make your line straight. Then you let go of the mouse or the touchpad, and then you let go of the shift, and you have a straight line. Now that I have a straight line, I can move that to my dot, and I can make it a little wider, and I can make it a different color. So I can make it kind of that orange color that we've got there. But I've still got the dot, which, you know, I may or may not want. So one of the things you could do is actually, if you want to, you can, again, if this is bigger in a new sheet, we can actually do this better. So I'm going to move this to a new sheet. Maybe I'm going to move it to the new sheet. I can't reach the top of my page because of all the things going on my screen here. I'm going to move that chart to a new sheet so I can show you. So now it's bigger. I should be able to click that dot. You think I should be able to click the dot. But what I can do is I can make that dot more transparent so that it doesn't show up as easily. I can't make it completely non-transparent because I need to be able to see it to line up my line. And on the bigger version, my line isn't quite big enough. So what I'm going to do is hold on the shift button and click on it and then just drag it out. The edge. Make that straight. So again, if you can't get that dot clicked, you can always make your line bigger to make it bigger and cover it up. I just didn't want my line that dark. So play around with it. You obviously want to label this as an average line, sort of text box, and label that. But the average line is just really nice, again, for us to see where it's, where that average actually hits. Just make sure your labels aren't covered up by the line. Okay, so you're gonna edit this up just enough that I can understand what you're doing. Same thing, bar chart, you're gonna highlight the data table, make a bar chart. So for Sunday, your assignment is to then create those 3 charts. Should be pretty simple. Again, just make sure the title, I understand what you're trying to do with your chart at this point. You can make an active title, yay, but if nothing else, I just want to understand what the chart's about. What we're going to do next week, we're going to make some more charts with both your AAC data, some research data, and then we're going to work an infographic draft. And then at the very end, you're going to have 3 charts. You're going to have an infographic. You're going to edit all of those and make them look beautiful. And that's what your team leaders, your marketing team, you're going to use to choose from. So you'll have a lot of different options of charts, graphs, visuals to make that are made that you can use those in your showcase presentations. Possibly your posters, again, we're deciding on Friday exactly what the deliverables are going to be, but you'll be able to use all of these visualizations. You're going to pick and choose the best ones out of the class. So you have a wide range of options to pick from, and that's the goal. So not only is everybody individually practicing at the end, your whole project will have some really good visualizations that'll be ready to go. So that's where we're headed. So Friday night, you're going to turn in an Excel file that's going to have the data, the cleaned data, and 3 tabs with 3 different data tables. Then on Sunday, you're going to turn in 3 PDF files, hopefully, of visuals. If you're using an icon array, if you want to do the icon array in Visme, that's fine. Just save that as an image and upload that. So your goal is data tables for Friday, actual draft visualizations for Sunday using your AAC data. I'm sure I forgot something this go around. I'll post it if I did. Hopefully I covered everything and hopefully the video works. I miss all of you. My goal, I had said before that we're probably going to do asynchronous until it changes. I think if not next week, the week after, we're probably going to have at least 1 session in person. That would be during our class time. I will tell you well in advance. And then we'd all Zoom together on that class time. But I think we may need to have some class time meetings just to talk about the AAC, which visualizations you're going to use. Next week, we are going to need to talk about color choices, and I'll figure out a way to do that with maybe just your marketing teams. But we definitely we are going to have to do some synchronous work. In the meantime, as you're working, and it's raining on you, I don't know if you can hear the rain, as you're working, please, please, please email me or text me to set up Zoom workshop times, because I am happy we can screen share. Just like in the classroom, you know, I talked, but then I walked around and helped you. I want to be there to help you, so please set up times with me. I'm happy to come and we'll come into Zoom and we'll work together. If you just want to talk, text me and we will set up a Zoom time. I'm actually thinking about setting up either a story hour or a game time, because some of my 121 students seem to be pretty bored and wanting interaction. And so if I do that, I'll invite you. But yeah, come talk to me. I'm kind of getting cooped up here, trying to self-quarantine since we've done a lot of traveling to the University of Alabama and Florida and Disney World over break. So pretty sure I'm exposed and I don't want to get anybody sick. But I do miss you all. Hopefully you are good. Contact me, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to post another video probably on Sunday for next week. I'll probably have 2 videos again next week for you. Bye.